On a chilly December morning at the headquarters of Titan Airways, Captain Olivia Carter walked in with confidence, ready to take command of her first flight as a senior captain. She had dedicated her life to aviation, logging over 15,000 hours in the sky, flying across 6 continents, and serving as a military transport pilot before transitioning to commercial aviation. But in an industry where less than 1% of pilots were black women, her journey was never easy. As she entered the crew lounge at JFK International Airport, a subtle silence spread through the room. The whispers, the glances, Olivia had seen it all before. However, nothing prepared her for the 7 words that would set off a chain reaction of events that would shake the entire airline industry to its core. "Captain Carter, we need you to wait outside." Olivia froze for a moment, processing what she had just heard. The words, spoken by Executive Operations Director Thomas Barrett, were curt and impersonal. Around her, conversations halted, and a tense silence settled over the room. She looked over at her first officer, Daniel Park, who gave her a confused glance. "Excuse me," she asked, her voice steady but firm. "I was scheduled to captain this flight. May I ask why I'm being reassigned?" Barrett avoided eye contact, clearing his throat before replying. "It's a matter of experience. Captain Whitmore will be taking command of Flight 207 today. You will be reassigned to another flight." Olivia felt a heat rise in her chest, not from anger, but from the all-too-familiar frustration of having her capabilities questioned. "With all due respect, I've flown into San Francisco 73 times in the last decade, including during severe weather. My qualifications were thoroughly reviewed during the hiring process. What's changed since then?" Barrett's expression darkened, and beside him, Captain Richard Whitmore, a veteran pilot with decades in the industry, stood with a knowing smirk. "Captain Carter, this isn't up for discussion," Barrett said, his tone sharp. "Please step outside." The room remained silent as Olivia considered her options. She could argue, demand a formal explanation, or comply and assess the situation later. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was not a battle to fight on impulse. With as much dignity as she could muster, she nodded, set down her flight documents, and walked out. Minutes later, the door opened, and Daniel stepped out, looking uncomfortable. "Captain," he said quietly, "for what it's worth, I think this is nonsense. I overheard them say it's standard procedure for new captains, but I've been here 3 years. I've never seen this happen before." That only confirmed Olivia's suspicions. This wasn't about experience. This was about control. They wanted her to know that despite her credentials, despite the gold stripes on her sleeve, she wasn't truly welcome. As Daniel hesitated, he leaned in slightly. "They reassigned you to Flight 422 to Seattle, with Harold Wilson." Olivia inhaled sharply. Captain Wilson was notorious for his resistance to diversity initiatives within the airline. If there was any captain who would make her feel unwelcome, it was him. She straightened her posture. "Thank you, Daniel," she said simply. "I appreciate you telling me." He nodded. "If you want to file a complaint, I'll back you up." Olivia considered the offer, but she knew the consequences. A formal complaint on her first day would mark her as difficult and potentially sabotage her future at Titan. Instead, she decided to bide her time. "Let me handle Flight 422 first," she said. "But thank you." Not everyone would speak up. As Daniel walked away, Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her younger sister, Natalie, lit up the screen. "Knock them dead on your first day, sis. So proud of you." She stared at the text, emotions swirling, pride, frustration, determination. Olivia had worked too hard to let this stop her. Whatever was going on at Titan Airways, she would uncover the truth, one way or another. Olivia's reassignment was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, it became clear that she was being treated differently from her colleagues. She was placed on undesirable routes, late-night flights, short-haul journeys, and secondary airports with little prestige. The captains she was assigned to shadow were not there to mentor her, but rather to scrutinize her every move. It wasn't just about the flights. Olivia quickly noticed that minor mistakes by other pilots were overlooked, while any action she took was met with excessive criticism. If she questioned an instruction, she was labeled as insubordinate. If she followed procedures to the letter, she was accused of being too rigid. The double standard was suffocating. Beyond the flight deck, the discrimination took on a more subtle but equally damaging form. During meetings and briefings, her ideas were dismissed or ignored. When she entered the crew lounge, conversations would sometimes halt abruptly. It wasn't everyone. Some of her colleagues, like Daniel, remained supportive, but there was a clear message being sent. She was an outsider in their tightly controlled world. One evening, after yet another tense flight with a captain who barely acknowledged her presence, Olivia found herself seated across from a flight attendant named Lauren Kim in the crew lounge. Lauren had been with Titan Airways for over a decade and had seen this kind of treatment before. "They're trying to push you out," Lauren said quietly. "I've seen it happen before. They make it so unbearable that you quit on your own." Olivia exhaled slowly, absorbing the words. "Why?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Lauren gave her a knowing look. "Because you're not what they expected. You don't fit their mold." Olivia clenched her jaw. She had fought for every opportunity in her career, proving herself time and time again. The idea of walking away now, after everything she had endured, was not an option. "They'll have to try harder than this," Olivia said firmly. Lauren smiled. "Good. But be careful. When they see you won't break, they'll find other ways to push back." That night, Olivia sat in her apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. She could walk away, find another airline, and continue her career elsewhere. But something told her that this was bigger than just her. If Titan Airways was willing to treat her this way, how many others had suffered in silence? She wasn't just going to survive this. She was going to fight back. One afternoon, Olivia decided to visit the maintenance hangar under the pretense of familiarizing herself with Titan's safety procedures. What she found there made her stomach turn. Mechanics worked under immense pressure, rushing through inspections with little time to properly assess aircraft conditions. It wasn't negligence, it was a company-wide directive. While chatting with one of the ground crew members, she met Marcus Green, a veteran technician who had been with Titan Airways for over 2 decades. At first, he was hesitant to speak freely, but as they talked about their shared roots in Detroit, he finally let his guard down. "Captain, listen," Marcus said in a low voice. "I've been here 23 years, and I've never seen it this bad. They've been cutting turnaround times, skipping mandatory inspections, and telling us to sign off on planes that shouldn't be in the air." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying planes are flying with known defects?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Not just minor issues. We're talking about structural problems, worn-out engine components, and faulty pressure valves. I wouldn't let my family board some of these flights." That statement alone sent a wave of alarm through Olivia. "Is there documentation?" she asked. Marcus hesitated before glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Then, he pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. "I've been keeping records. Maintenance logs, internal memos, and even emails from management pushing us to approve unsafe aircraft." She took the drive carefully, understanding the risk he was taking. "Marcus, this is serious. If the FAA finds out—" "They already suspect something," he interrupted. "Titan's been under light scrutiny for months, but nothing has come of it. Management knows how to play the game. The question is, what are you going to do with this information?" Olivia exhaled slowly, her mind racing. If she came forward, her career would be on the line. She would be labeled a troublemaker, possibly blacklisted from the industry. But if she stayed silent, countless lives would be put at risk. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But I can't ignore this." Marcus placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then be careful, Captain. People who ask too many questions around here don't last long." That night, Olivia sat in her apartment, going through the files on the USB drive. What she found confirmed everything Marcus had said. Planes had been approved for flight despite failing safety checks. Maintenance issues had been downgraded on paper to avoid costly repairs. Employees who had spoken up had been mysteriously reassigned or fired. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every passenger who unknowingly put their trust in Titan Airways. The question now was, how far was she willing to go to expose the truth? That night, Olivia sat at her dining table, staring at the USB drive Marcus had given her. On it were months of falsified maintenance records, internal emails pressuring staff to approve unsafe aircraft, and documents proving that Titan Airways had ignored critical safety concerns to maintain their profit margins. The weight of the situation settled heavily on her shoulders. She knew that if she acted, her life and career would never be the same again. She picked up the phone and called her younger sister, Natalie, a corporate lawyer with a fierce sense of justice. "Natalie, I need your help," Olivia said, her voice quieter than usual. "What's going on?" Natalie asked, immediately alert. "I have proof that Titan Airways is covering up massive safety violations. If I report this, I could lose everything." There was a pause on the line. Then, Natalie's voice came through, steady and resolute. "Olivia, you became a pilot because you wanted to protect people. If you stay silent, how will you live with yourself if something happens?" Olivia exhaled slowly. She had spent her entire career making decisions under pressure, but this was unlike anything she had faced before. If she came forward, she would be branded a troublemaker, blacklisted from the industry, and possibly sued by Titan. But if she stayed silent, countless passengers would be at risk every single day. She took a deep breath. "I'm going to the FAA." The next morning, she compiled a comprehensive report using the documents Marcus had provided, along with her own observations. With Natalie's guidance, she prepared a legal statement and reached out to a trusted contact within the Federal Aviation Administration. But Olivia knew that if Titan had been covering this up for so long, they wouldn't go down without a fight. So she took an extra step. She contacted an investigative journalist from the New York Tribune, someone with a history of exposing corporate corruption. By noon, the wheels were in motion. The FAA had acknowledged receipt of her report, and the journalist had agreed to meet her. Olivia felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The fear was still there, but so was something else, conviction. That evening, she received a call from an unknown number. When she picked up, a male voice said, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into, Captain Carter. Walk away while you still can." A cold shiver ran down her spine, but she refused to be intimidated. She had made her decision. "Not a chance," she said, hanging up. She knew the battle ahead would be brutal, but one thing was clear: she was done waiting outside. It was time to fight. Olivia knew she had set an unstoppable chain of events into motion the moment she submitted her report to the FAA. The agency wasted no time, launching an immediate investigation into Titan Airways' maintenance practices. Within days, federal inspectors descended on the airline's major hubs, combing through records, interviewing employees, and grounding multiple aircraft for emergency inspections. The media caught wind of the investigation, and soon, Olivia's worst fears and greatest hopes became reality. Headlines screamed of Titan Airways' alleged safety violations, and passengers across the country demanded answers. The airline tried to downplay the situation, releasing carefully worded statements insisting that safety was their top priority. But as more employees came forward with their own stories, it became clear that Titan had been covering up issues for years. Then came the retaliation. Olivia arrived at work one morning to find that her security badge no longer worked. When she finally got inside, she was escorted to a meeting with Thomas Barrett and a team of corporate lawyers. They accused her of violating company policy, leaking confidential information, and creating a hostile work environment. "You have two choices, Captain Carter," Barrett said coldly. "You can resign quietly, or we will terminate you for cause and make sure you never fly for a major airline again." Olivia met his gaze, her heart pounding, but she refused to let them see her fear. "I won't be signing anything," she said firmly. "And you should know, the FAA already has my full report. The Tribune's investigative team is publishing their story tomorrow. So if you fire me now, it's only going to make you look worse." Barrett's face paled. The lawyers whispered urgently among themselves. Finally, Barrett sighed, his voice strained. "You'll regret this." "No," Olivia said, standing. "You will." The fallout was swift. Within a week, the FAA announced they were grounding 40% of Titan's fleet due to safety concerns. The airline's stock plummeted, and executives scrambled to do damage control. Whistleblowers from across the company came forward, exposing years of negligence. By the end of the month, Titan Airways was facing multiple lawsuits, and the Justice Department opened an inquiry into possible criminal misconduct. And Olivia? She became a hero. The very industry that had tried to shut her out now held her up as an example of courage and integrity. Competing airlines reached out with job offers, eager to show their commitment to safety. But Olivia wasn't just looking for another pilot position. She wanted to make real change. As she watched Titan Airways crumble, she knew she had made the right decision. She had risked everything, but in the end, She had done what mattered most. She had told the truth. Lessons from the story. Integrity over comfort. Doing the right thing is rarely easy, but it is always necessary. Courage in the face of injustice. Speaking up against wrongdoing takes immense strength, but one voice can spark massive change. The power of perseverance. Olivia faced obstacles at every turn, yet she never backed down. Persistence is key to making a difference. Safety should never be compromised. The aviation industry runs on trust, and when companies prioritize profit over human lives, they must be held accountable. Personal reflection. This story reminds us that true leadership isn't about titles. It's about standing for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. Olivia Carter's journey teaches us that change starts with those who refuse to be silent. If we see injustice in our own lives, are we willing to be the ones to take action? If you love inspiring stories of courage and resilience, don't forget to subscribe to Story Precious for more thought-provoking videos. Hit the notification bell to never miss an update, and let's continue sharing stories that make a difference. Until next time, keep aiming high,